This is another issue with America, is it is very much a two-party system.
In a lot of different countries, it's the way that the poorer the population gets, the more nationalist they become, rather than the more socialist they become.
He does not have to play by the politicians' rules, and it completely changed the political climate of America.
Big fat orange one. The atmosphere of modern-day society created an illusion of moral, philosophical and social lines between what's right and what's wrong. We examine this theoretical mirage in today's latest topics and controversies. My name is Aleks.
I'm Aleks too. I'm just kidding, I'm Erin.
Let's begin. What is the topic today, Erin?
Topic today, it's a big fat juicy one, but... yeah, it's Trump. It's Trump.
It's orange.
Indictment. It's orange.
Big fat orange one.
It's Trump. The election. Just, the political climate of America at the moment.
That's true. This is not so long time ago, I think it was in the beginning of this month, he got indicted 4th time. This time in Georgia. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of news reported to it, but it's kind of hilarious that every indictment he has would have like a couple of dozen of felonies under it. So he basically every day, yes.
For those that don't know, at least for the Georgia indictments, there's 22 counts of forgery or false documents and statements, 8 counts related to soliciting or impersonating public officials, 3 counts related to influencing witnesses, 3 counts related to election fraud and defrauding the state, 3 counts related to computer tampering, 1 count related to racketeering, and 1 count related to perjury.
Jesus. Yeah, and it is Enrico as well, which is good. So, which means the whole kind of...
the man's a genius.
No...
the judge specifically told him, we have these witnesses for the trial. You cannot do anything to threaten these witnesses or anything like that. And then he tweets a threat publicly towards the witnesses.
Dude.
So,
but he done it all the time. Like, 2016,
I agree.
he done it.
I 100% agree. I think that we established just kind of a baseline of moral acceptance, because at the time when he ran initially during the election, if it had been any other political official, it would have been over straight away. From the moment that he made fun of the reporter who had like the disability, and so like he out publicly like went and like shook his arm around making fun of a disabled journalist.
Jesus.
Reporter, and he did it publicly. This is prior to the election, and for anybody else, that straight away would have been like, boo, you're out, like we're done, But he established the rules from the very beginning.
It's gonna be a lot.
He does not have to play by the politicians' rules, and it completely changed the political climate of America. What people can get away with and get away with saying, and then just to publicly lie so much. It's just insane.
Funnily enough,
because he's not held accountable.
That's true, but I don't think majority of what he does is actually lying. I think no, give me a second on that. I think majority of what he does, he tells bullshit. And the difference in between that, if you lie, you have a reason, right? You're like, this is untrue and I'm gonna say untrue because I need to get ahead or something. But I think he just throws bullshit because he can. Like, there is no agenda a lot of the time.
But
it's just whatever.
100% there is an agenda. Like when it came down to like him having the simple things, like small things, because he wasn't held accountable. He didn't need to be held accountable, and therefore he could just continuously get away with more and more things. Obviously, we're going to be upsetting the conservative viewership tonight because while he is more conservative, probably one of the more liberal leaning ways that he goes, at least when it comes to Trump. Just think of like what he did for the inaugural ceremony, and like when he was like, I had the biggest crowd of all time, when it was just statistically not true. It just like objectively was not true, and he just kept saying it because it was embarrassing for him. Like, I think he has a super fragile ego, and
he
so
definitely does.
It is embarrassing for him to not have the biggest one. So
yeah, well,
despite the fact that Obama did, like he just all these small things, he just doesn't care to be truthful, but I do think he has an agenda behind it.
Okay, so with an agenda of just
to make him look good.
Image.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, then
fragile ego.
Yeah, you can kind of you can argue that, but then there is just a lot of things he just doesn't know what to say, and he just says it. like just the way how he misspeaks sometimes, such as I do right now. But it's honestly like it's sometimes. And I assume that what got him into the politics at the first place, and why he got chosen as a president is because people who who saw him just saying bullshit knew that at least he isn't having like this dark plot, and so.
But this is what I don't understand. I genuinely need to speak to a conservative about how they feel on very specific issues, such as Trump's, tax plan is kind of like trickle-down Reagan economics. It's the wealthy, they're not going to be taxed because they're going to give it back. But then we tax the little guy. Whereas if you genuinely are a Republican, you're a conservative, why wouldn't you want, why wouldn't you want wealthy people to be taxed more than yourself? Because it came out Trump didn't pay anything in taxes for like a year. He didn't have to because he has all the loopholes and all the this, that, and tax exempt here and whatever. Why would you, in your system, not want wealthier people to be? Because then you're just keeping the middle class and the lower class. You're making it a harder battle for them to get out of lower or middle class and move up.
Well, I assume that the thing about it is the amount of state control over, over businesses. And his idea is to release the state control, which is in Republican understanding, which is in conservative understanding, is a good thing to do. But it is interesting. It's and I would.
And we've seen how well that's gone with the abortions in Texas. It's been great.
Yeah, no, but it's interesting why Democrats don't use it as well. Why they don't just sit down and be like, look, everybody who is voting Republican, who owns less than middle class, he is objectively bad for you about this policy.
But they do say that. But
objectively.
Yes, but they are very, I don't want to say brainwashed, but kind of. They're so set in their ways and so dedicated towards this belief of republicanism that I don't think they are willing to look at that objectively. And that's where the issue lies, I think. And I would say that goes the same for both sides. Like even
for sure.
Even, extreme left leaning can't look at something necessarily objectively because you're very lost in your belief.
Way too, yeah.
You can't see the forest for the trees,
That's true, but you also have your keys of power that you kind of have to please and all the other stuff around it, and that's true. And that's why interesting, like in my home country, for example, you can run for a president if you're a part of the party, you're allowed to run for the president. But as long as you become a president, you have to resign your party membership. You cannot be a part of this certain party if you're a president.
Yeah,
because we're mixed Republican. That's a lot of different things. There.
Are you really?
No, but really, yes. Like
is
you
it
have
not
to.
More? No, but it's not a democracy.
Well, yes, I understand.
And that's the issue.
Yeah, but it's not a democracy because for the past 15 years it worked out to be that way. Not really for the past probably 20 years. We're closer to looking now. It started off not bad, and then when Putin took over, it's actually even better for like a term, and then kind of went down the drain. But it's a story for a different conversation, I guess. But the point is that it's interesting how you give people to choose from only two parties, like really.
Well,
really.
Yeah, this is another issue with America is it is very much a two-party system. Now, there are third parties, Green Party, blah, 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 etc. But because they have literally no support behind them, there's no funding in politics is also something that's just wildly just awful. Anyway.
But that's why, like, if you are a conservative, you have to vote Republican. You practically, first of all, you're already set for that.
You don't have to.
I mean, but you really...
You can switch parties based on which candidate is running on a on a platform that you are behind. But I feel like because everything is so divisive now, you have to stick with your party. Whereas prior to, I want to say...
Bush?
I would say, yeah, maybe prior to Bush, it was kind of... okay, you know, it's not, I'm dead set on Republican and I'm dead set on Democrat. I think people easily and often did flip-flop between parties based on a candidate that was running on a platform they needed to support.
No, that's
so
true.
If, regardless if they're Republican or Democrat, if they're going for universal health care and that's what you want to support, you would just go and join that party. Like, or whatever the issue was. I don't think people were as married to a party as they are now. I think the political climate is so tense.
Just segregated, yeah. But that's also the other thing, and that's hopefully slowly, and there are a few different podcast platforms that kind of discuss that, and not so long time ago, Sam Harris actually discussed the problem of Republican Party with one of the members of Republican Party who is not pro-Trump, so it's kind of like in discussing that how it actually works out, and there are lots of good points, and definitely check it out.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of Republicans that aren't pro-Trump, even though he is still the most supported of the candidates based on just the latest polls. But you can see the breakdown of the Republican Party just in the candidates willing to run alone. Right now, there's 3 Democrats willing to run.
That's true.
And there's 12 Republicans willing to run.
That's actually quite bad when you think about it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because now your votes from overall Republican pool gets split over 12 people. I assume it gets, by the end of it gets to one person, right? Yes. And you have to vote for one person. But then what it basically shows is that your vote is not...
I don't know if it gets... it comes down to just one. Like, you have to have for your party.
Yeah, just one person. And so at the latest stages of the election.
Yeah.
Just one by the party, yes.
Yeah.
What happens with... That's an interesting question. I don't know how it is. So if you know. What happens with... if I'm not from Republican or Democratic Party, such as the...
Third party.
Yes. So, any other, yes. Such as
party.
Mr. West, which is applying apparently for the president.
Kanye?
Trying to... No, the different West. I'll tell you his name.
Because Kanye West has
he's
done the whole
right? He's a Republican, right? Mr. Kanye West.
I don't think he knows what he is.
Okay. Okay, yes. Okay, so... Okay, but fine. Okay, yeah, no, different Mr. West applying for... Which I cannot...
Joke.
Yes,
bad
no,
joke.
That's a very bad joke. I will tell you exactly his name in a split second. His name is Cornel, almost like Kanye. Colonel West, yes. That's a Yale, Princeton, and Harvard professor, ex-professor.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so he wanted to run under the People's Party, but he thinks to run on the Green at the current stage.
Oh, okay, so he's part of the Green Party.
Well, he
doesn't know.
Yeah.
What is his platform?
I don't know. That's
okay.
all I've read on him. And I know that he's trying to... He was very critical of Obama's ways to look around, especially leftist side, like supporting the universities and healthcare and things. He was very critical of that. But it's interesting.
I don't. This is something else I genuinely don't understand when it comes to like Republicans. I really don't get it. Socialism, you give it this bad term and it's just terrible, and you know, this is an evil out there, and look at Venezuela, and okay, yeah, but look at democratic socialist countries, and
like Sweden,
or Denmark, etc., and so on. You can very whatever, very socialist countries. But you as a Republican, especially if you're lower middle class, right? I look at it as, think of my dad, right? My father has Alzheimer's. And the medication that he's on Obamacare. Or he was, not anymore, but he was on Obamacare at the time during 2016 when he was running for, when Trump was running. And Trump's platform was to replace Obamacare.
Okay.
And I was very scared of... Oh my God.
Oopsie daisy.
Aleks! So, I think of my dad. He has Alzheimer's. And at the time, 2016, Trump was running on the platform of repealing and replacing Obamacare. And that genuinely scared me because my father was using Obamacare to help afford a very expensive Alzheimer's medication. And if he had succeeded, the cost of his medication would have jumped from, at the time I was paying $400 a month, it would have been like $2,000 a month, and I wouldn't have been able to afford his medication. So that it was genuinely sad and upsetting to me when Trump won, because I was terrified of the repeal and replacement of Obamacare. That was the main thing that scared me, just because obviously, as you know, we all think of ourselves, that was what was going to affect me the most and affect my ability to take care of my father. So as a Republican, why are you so against making these medications affordable and using your government to make these medications affordable? If you are lower middle class, you're going to come across Alzheimer's. And I bet you have Medicare. I bet you have Medicaid. I bet you have, potentially Obamacare.
You better do, yeah.
Because otherwise you're not going to be able to afford a lot of the medication that you need. And Alzheimer's is prevalent. But, I mean, there's thousands of other diseases. I mean, just think of, like, diabetes or heart disease.
Yeah.
How are you affording your medication? And why does it upset you so much for your potential tax dollars? Granted, it's your tax dollars. You're working hard for it. But at the end of the day, you never, ever, ever have to worry about not being able to afford your hospital bill. You never, ever have to worry about not being able to afford your prescription or not taking the best care of your family, or having to go, I need to get a procedure done, but I can't afford it, so I'm not going to do it. And then you die younger. Like, I don't understand at the end of the day why.
And get your family and
be able to take care of your family better. Yes, I understand. There are people out there that you'll be paying for with your tax dollars, but everyone else is also paying for you.
Or at least for your security.
Yeah, for your security. So you never have to worry about that. Why is that such a bad thing?
And it is interesting. It's in a lot of different countries. It's the way that the poorer the population gets, the more nationalist they become, rather than the more socialist they become. Yeah. So it is quite interesting, because when you think about it, you probably, as a poorer person, have to logically you would become more socialist, but not. So it's interesting. It's probably propaganda is one part of it, but also maybe the fact that socialists do run on very educational based, like on very complex approaches.
Yeah. So, and they're more difficult to understand. They might not appeal,
to less educated people. That's a problem.
A huge problem. I 100% agree. I don't think that class difference is not correlated with education difference and the ability to go to certain schools. That's or be maybe you had to drop out of high school in order to work to help take care of your family because you couldn't afford their medication, or whereas like that, things along those lines. So it is a much more complicated, not so straightforward. And I really get this whole I work for me, myself, and I, and this is like I worked for this and it's all mine.
Yeah.
And I get it because you're working hard, but the amount of relief that was lifted off of my shoulders when I left America and I moved here in New Zealand, where I went to the hospital because I got really sick. I didn't pay a single bill. Every prescription I've had here has been $5.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's true. Yeah, whatever, practically whatever you receive.
And
not really.
And I don't have to throw money away at health insurance every month. It's a whole other bill I don't have to have. And even with health insurance in America, because prior to my dad being on Obamacare, he had been a professor at a university and had Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is widely considered one of the best insurance companies that you can have in regards to health. So I was on Blue Cross Blue Shield up until I was 26, because in America you can have a child on there until 26 years old. So I had Blue Cross Blue Shield to cover me until I was 26. And even then, if I went to the hospital for an emergency, $480, here you go.
Jesus, that's a lot of money. In USD, it's a lot of money. Whatever, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It is interesting, but I think we all should probably...
And that was years ago. I can only imagine how much it is now.
It is...
And, how many people need an ambulance to pick them up, but absolutely refuse to call an ambulance to pick them up.
That's true, yeah.
Because it is so expensive.
Because it's so expensive, yeah. Getting an Uber with a gun.
But what does that say to you about your society?
That's
what
true.
does that say to you about your society? So I would love to speak to a conservative just to really try to understand. I get it. I work for me. This is my own thing. But the relief to have that off of your shoulders and not have to worry about your family. Why is that not worth it? I don't know.
Well, I assume for them they just see as taxation as an alternative way to invest their dollar, and I suspect some slightly more educated Republicans would probably donate a lot of their income to church, for example, where they belong to, and that church would take care of a lot of the surrounding areas.
That's another issue, because then you have churches where the pastor has private jets and the congregation's huge and all of this, that, and the other, and all the bells and whistles, which you don't need at a church.
That's true. But you as a
just
it's absolutely
it's interesting because he grew up in Russia and saw the downfalls that come with communism and socialism.
That's true.
And I've grown up in America and I've seen the evils of capitalism.
That's true.
And so it's just...
It's kind of to see where we met. But we all should remember that the social revolution in Russia was based on exactly that premise. It was quite of a left-leaning people, in fact, Lenin, just coming in and drawing a mass, which at that time was lower middle class people. And that who voted for him. Why? Because he was left-leaning. He was like, we're going to give you land. We're going to give you everything. And they're like, holy fuck. Nobody ever done that, because Tsars would usually, they would give the land to their rich supporters, and then the rich supporters would maybe like sell it in very expensive pieces or something like that. So it's him appealing to the mass of lower income people and lower class people and just getting so many of them.
So was it a
accumulated.
problem that he didn't think out the way that the system would work and therefore could not implement it correctly?
No. He in fact, look, it's an interesting question, and there are going to be
This is so off the topic.
It's always off the topic, yes. And there's going to be a lot of people who would probably think that he didn't. And there's going to be a lot of people like Mr. Peterson, for example, who would say that, no, he actually absolutely did exactly what he meant to do, and it worked out exactly how he meant to do. If you listen to people who are nowadays Communist Party in Russia, which still exists, they would probably say that Stalin was a mistake, rather, because Lenin really, by his deathbed, he really signed off saying that Stalin shouldn't take the power, and he did. But at the same time, Lenin was okay with murdering rich people because they're rich, so it's kind of it's a little bit in the shadow, but that's also the piece of history that we should remember, because that's probably something that is slowly but surely will come to America as well, and eventually it's just going to slowly flip, where the poorer people are going to rate for Democrats. And
feel that Trump and just the wave of support that is for Trump, which Republicanism is quite divided now, but he still has the majority of the Republican vote. Do you view Trump as a fascist?
Interesting question. As a fascist, probably. Now, I will have to define fascism, and I'm gonna be so wrong. But I would probably say yes, on a definition that he believes in the lead of a powerful figure. Now I really need to define fascism correct. I really believes on a lead of a powerful figure that is supporting hyper nationalist agenda. If that's the definition of a fascist, which is probably not, but if that is, then I think he is. Because see, like, throwing labels, I'm okay with sometimes with that, but then we all have to understand what we actually talk about. Because then, like, you may have a different definition of fascism, somebody else is gonna have a different definition of fascism, and then they're gonna say, hey, he's actually not because of these reasons, and because we're just in general thinking about a different thing. But yes, if I Google a definition of fascism, which I probably should do, I probably would say yes. Mm-hmm. But he's really more
Should I do that for you?
Yeah, no, I can do it here. Fascism definition. Let's do it. A far-right authoritarian, untransverse political ideology movement characterized by dictatorial leader, controlled authority, militarism, force, bias, suggestion, opinion, belief in a natural social hierarchy. See, here I don't know.
Fascists often advocate for the establishment of a totalitarian one-party state and for a dirigist economy with the principal goal of archiving autarky, national economic self-sufficiency through protectionist and economic interventionist policies.
In here, probably yes. But again, looking at Wikipedia's definition, no. Because he really doesn't advocate for a natural social hierarchy. He never said that these people are better than this people, then better than this people, then better than this people.
You don't think that he's for classism?
Classism is different to...
That's not?
To, like, natural social hierarchy.
No.
Natural being like you're born black and you're therefore less a person than that's natural.
You're born rich, you're born poor.
Do you think he would be against of new money? I don't think so. I think as long as there's money, I think he's going to be into it. I think so.
Exactly.
So, but new money, like new Silicon Valley like, young guys.
Okay, maybe you come through, but gonna definitely stick with the richer, wealthier.
No, for sure, yes.
And until you have money, I'm not really going to mess around with you.
He's definitely into classism, but I'm not entirely sure if he's into like this really like race and kind of associated part of it, and which is obviously relates to a lot of a fascist ideology. But it's interesting how to look into that as well and see where exactly he stands, because starting in the Democratic Party, he started there, and now, well, it was a while ago, but he's right now Republican and quite driving it further and further right as he goes, because of his kind of personal ego, of course.
Yeah, I think he says a lot of things that Republicans want to hear.
Oh, for sure.
Which is the whole, let's build the wall, right?
Exactly.
Did he build the wall? No. He ran on the platform, let's repeal, replace Obamacare. He had majority Republicans in the House, Republicans in the Senate, Republicans in the Supreme Court, and he himself a Republican president, and still was not able to repeal and replace Obamacare. All of these things that he's saying he's going to do. And just remember the hypocrisy that just bothers me. When, for example, Obama had the opportunity to put somebody on the Supreme Court, and the Republicans were furious, saying you should wait a year until after the election because it might not be what the people want.
That's right.
And he did wait quite a long time, whereas Trump had a month.
Yeah.
A month, and Republicans were like, "Yeah, he put someone on the Supreme Court." Just the amount of hypocrisy. Or when he ran on the platform of Hillary's emails, and then he had a just closet full of classified documents.
That's true.
In Mar-a-Lago.
That's true.
Unprotected.
That's true.
And yet Republicans are like, he didn't do anything
wrong.
He didn't do anything wrong. And it's how can you, you are doing logical somersaults and gymnastics just to make this, plausible in your brain for you to be opposed to one and opposed to another.
See, here, I think, is because he actually doesn't subscribe to a set of belief. Here, he doesn't really subscribe to what Republicans believe in. He just tries to further himself. And that's why he gets into this trouble, because if he would just be subscribing to what really Republicans square and fair believe, then he wouldn't go that. He wouldn't do he wouldn't store documents in his fucking state in Mar-a-Lago.
Another issue that I have is there's so much Republican bandwagon cheering for him when they don't genuinely know any of the political platforms that he's running on, or the implications of, or any bills or laws that he's passed, or his any political involvement he seems to actually have.
But that's how he always is with lower educated. In general, if your pool is lower educated, that's how you usually do.
But do you think Republicans in general are lower educated?
I think by the pool of majority for sure would be.
Really?
I think so. I think I might be actually wrong. And this is a good thing to Google.
Because there's plenty of very wealthy, Ivy League graduates that are Republicans and subscribe to Republicanism. A lot of that has to do with, fiscal conservative beliefs and probably not moral beliefs, such as the abortion issue and things of that nature.
Holy shit, I'm wrong as it gets, basically.
Yeah.
It's interesting, yes. And that's coming from Power Research Center, which is believable or not. Less than $30,000 income, 27% of people voting Republican, 50% of people voting Democrat.
Are what, college graduates?
Just
what are you looking at?
Just income-based. Income-based segregation. So
we're asking about education.
Okay. How do I Google education? Education-based separation of Republican versus Democrat.
I'm cutting this out.
Yeah, no, you can
boring.
cut it out. Education cycle several Republican leaders. No, it's very hard to Google.
Let me try.
Yeah, sure. America is divided by education. That's the Atlantic, so it's kind of like, yeah, whatever. And they say basically who is educated votes Republican. From the Republicans go.
Okay. A deep dive into party affiliation.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a look.
That's actually a good way to Google it. Party affiliation based on education. That's one that you're looking at, yes.
No, Democrats lead by 22 points with postgraduate degrees.
Yeah, postgraduate,
Yeah.
that's quite a thing there.
It's closer when it comes to college degrees, but overall, Democrats advantage 35 points among women with postgraduate degrees, and 8 with men of postgraduate degrees. And of all educational categories, women are more likely than men to affiliate with the Democratic Party. But yes, overall, Democrats are in general more educated.
Okay. And then here you can probably argue, like Mr. Peterson does, that the basically education system in America has poisoned the political view, and therefore it's highly radically
I
socialist.
100% agree.
You can argue that. You can argue, but it's again like I'm not entirely sure how much. Like the fact that university is going to be more left-leaning because it's just the nature of universities of making
because it's
people.
based on science.
Well, no, but also the part of it that universities pressure you to start thinking, which is rather not conservative to keep everything the same, because when you start thinking you see the problems and you want to change them. It's natural kind of thing. So if you're conservative, you're like, no, we have to stay the same because change is dangerous, fair. But then the more education you get, the more critical thinking you develop, the more like the more questions you start asking, the more you see that you want to change, the more the lefter you become, basically.
Yeah.
So that logic of it would be that, but fair. Okay, so back into Mr. Trump. That being said, 2024, he's running again, as we discussed. On beside of
potentially,
yes,
because if the trial happens prior to him running, he can't run.
Oh, so but hey, you can still run from a jail. You can still do.
No, once you're convicted of a crime,
Yes.
you can no longer be president.
Interesting.
So he's indicted now. If he is convicted, he cannot be president. So
when is the election?
November 2024.
So it's in a year and a bit.
Yeah.
How? Well, probably that's a lawyer question, really. How fast that process would go.
They are
'Cause it would take a
trying.
fucking
They are
long.
trying to make the trial and everything happen at the beginning of 2024. So it is not possible for him to run, which I think will drastically change the Republican Party, which is already quite divided. I think it's a third of the Republican Party are still with Trump, but then the other 2/3 are kind of split among the other 11 candidates. So he's still the dominant leader, and he would win for the Republican Party as it stands now.
Yeah.
But if he were to be convicted of a crime, he couldn't.
Would you think that it would actually stabilize the situation? Would you
Stabilize or destabilize?
destabilize? Yes.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Because people who went out on January 6th, they probably was gonna fucking break into his jail.
Again, this is the thing. January 6th, that happened. They were proud Trump supporters. They recorded themselves. And then all the Trump supporters afterwards went, oh, that was Antifa dressing up as Trump supporters. It wasn't us. We would never do that. So it's just like, you can't win. You genuinely can't win with them. They're not willing to recognize
Yeah, but that's again, if you go that far right, then because then you are about personalities, you're not anymore about law. That's the whole point. Like, again, it's exactly the same about left as well. So, but then but no, it's interesting to see that how that politics plays out. But I'm
just sure. Genuinely, like I need to have a deep dive with a conservative to understand, because like at the end of the day, they don't want their tax dollars paying for Medicare, Medicaid, or anyone getting food stamps and all this, that, and the other. So the left comes up with, okay, well, let's do, sex education, make condoms and contraceptives free, or at least more accessible, and make abortions, legal, so that we can lower the lower income population and the poorer population, so that your tax dollars aren't being wasted on these people that you think don't want to work and do drugs and blah blah blah. So let's do that. No, we can't do that. We, but Jesus and
Jesus is a thing, Like it is problematic, and there, I don't think there is really a way around it for Republicans.
But it's with every situation where it's, we don't want this because these reasons. Okay, with these reasons, here are some solutions. No, we can't do that, and then it will come back to
but that's the whole purpose of being conservative, because you're not for change. So therefore, if you're not changing, fucking good. We're comfortable here. As a conservative, I'm very comfortable. So that's why for them it's probably the answer no is the easiest way to go around it. Really, when you think about it, and that's sadly enough, it's your job as a left-leaning person to actually change that. Which is ain't easy. But
well, with the whole systems of checks and balances, nothing in America is really drastically going to change one way or another. Until I think more of a generational gap, because I do think that republicanism is less in Gen Z, people, less in millennials, and therefore it will eventually kind of fade. Which it is wild to me that our whole electoral college system is still set up because you have a minority of the population being able to control what majority of the population believe and can't do.
It's a difficult thing when you start thinking about it. You have majority of the population, right?
Are Democrats.
If majority of the population decides something and it's really against of a minority population thinking, like drastically against, what are you gonna do about it? Logically, what are you gonna do about it? You're just gonna change, right? You're just gonna follow the majority.
Well, right? That's the problem, because if you are a majority group and you're against a minority idea, you wouldn't vote for it. So majority of the population would be getting what they want. But because of the electoral system and the way that it's set up, majority of the population might not want Roe v. Wade overturned and might not want all of these things.
Fair.
However, a minority thought and a minority group are given equal balance with the electoral college.
I understand.
Which is not
I understand.
fair.
But then you have a percentage of the population that are Native American population, which is minority of the population of the whole United States. Would you think that their vote should be less than other people's vote just because there are less number of them there? Politically, do you think they should be allowed about the land that they actually been living on for thousands of years before people come in? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how you discounting everything, those kind of minorities?
No, I get it. But that's not what the Electoral College is there for. It's not there to protect Native Americans.
No, but that's what I'm...
Yes, it's there to protect the wealthy.
It can be. Because when you think about gerrymandering, right? Part of it is because you want to have people who vote for you to vote for you. Part of it.
No.
The other part...
The whole part is I want to make sure a minority group can still have an equal chance or better by rewriting.
Let me even accept that, because I don't particularly agree, but it doesn't matter. That's not the point of the argument here. What the point is that gerrymandering can be used in order to better evenness of the society agreement on what should be happening with the total population.
With a majority group and a minority group.
Look,
yes,
okay,
I agree with that sentiment.
Let's do like this. If you take 30 biggest cities in the United States, they would compose of majority of the population of the United States. 30 biggest cities. Yes? Now, 30 biggest cities by land is fuck all comparing to the whole country and how spread the people live. Now, do you think that 30 biggest cities should just decide on everybody else to how the politics gonna work?
No. Semicolon, however, comma. Add up the population of those cities.
Yeah, they're gonna be bigger.
Okay, great. Add up the population of those cities. Then tally the population of rural America. America's huge.
Yeah.
What would be the balance there?
The biggest cities would be significantly more population than everybody else in rural America, for sure.
All of it.
Yeah.
So you just taking capital cities, what, Seattle?
Well, not just 30 largest cities by
Seattle, Chicago,
yeah.
New York, Miami, all of those. You take them.
And everybody else.
Why 30? Why are you coming up with 30?
I don't know. I just think that's going to be sufficiently enough.
Why 30?
How many cities? No. What's the largest population? Let's go.
What is the population of rural America? 60 million people, or 1 in 5 residents, 17.9% of the total U.S. population live in rural America.
Here we go. So, but it's not even it's not even rural America in that sense. So you take 30 biggest cities, which is number 30 is Baltimore, the current station, Maryland, which is 500,000. Slightly more than 500,000.
Well, we already figured 60 million is rural, and there's 433 million total population for U.S.
I think it's 333
million, sorry.
Yeah. I thought it's 360, but maybe wrong, but it's okay.
330.
Yeah, so there are significantly less rural population than city population.
Okay.
So do you think city population, and just take the biggest cities there should lead politics?
But it doesn't go that way.
But it does, because
it doesn't.
Population, they're a bigger population.
I think you're kind of missing the point of gerrymandering. So the point is that it is by state, not population.
I understand. Yes, fair.
Yeah.
Because
so the way that you do it, say you have a...
let's add 10 minutes or something.
I will just make this point.
Okay.
Say you have a square.
Okay.
This is your state, right?
Yeah.
Gerrymandering essentially says, I'm going to take this state and I'm going to divide it into equal parts.
Yeah.
So I would take this square and I will divide it equally into, what, six sections.
Okay.
Each of those 6 sections, regardless of population,
yes.
get the same vote.
One. Yeah.
Get the same vote.
Fair.
But that is not what gerrymandering is. Gerrymandering is, here's a predominantly Democratic group that have registered as Democrats.
We're just going to include more Republicans there.
I'm going to make all of these Republicans here included with this one, so that's a majority Republican section. And then I'll take this section and I'll make this tiny little bit of Democrats, and then all these Republicans, and then so it's not fair.
Fair. Okay. Yes, but
it's not being used fairly. But even then, even if you weren't to gerrymander the maps, a state, I wouldn't say is going to be by population. It will always be in some form by area. The problem is it shouldn't be drawn. It should just be
what the state
federal sections. No one should be able to redraw or create a map.
Okay. Do you think...
Fine.
Question. Do you think then how it should be done is everybody votes in a state, and then the state has a vote, right?
That's what the Electoral College is, and that's why it's bullshit.
Okay, so you think that bullshit. So how do you think it should be done?
True democracy. Everybody's vote counts.
Okay.
And you make the government work for you. You go, oh, you're running on this platform. You might be a Democrat, but I don't appreciate what you're running on. I don't like it. You're not getting my vote. You have to work harder to get my vote because you're not addressing my issues.
So then
you're addressing my issues.
So it's person by person.
Person by person. True democracy.
Okay.
Everybody votes for whoever they want to.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, what the majority of people say goes.
So then, basically, what you will have to do as a person or who runs for president is convince the biggest cities that you are the best person to vote for. You can just throw away all the other votes because they're not gonna matter by the end of it all, because it's by the number of the people who actually vote for you. So
I wouldn't say 60 million people is not a lot, and like
Fair.
333 million people don't vote. How many people voted in the last election?
Good question.
Because it was absolutely nothing in comparison to the actual population.
USA. 240 million people eligible to vote in 2020 presented the election. Roughly 61% of them submitted the ballot, so totaling 160 million.
Okay, so 60 million people, nothing to shake a stick at. If you want their vote, be someone that they want to vote for. And 60 million could win it for you.
Yeah. Probably.
Not probably.
Arguably.
Good.
Yeah, no, fair.
Because it's not mandatory to vote in America.
No.
You don't have to, and people don't.
Such as Russia as well. Yeah. You don't, but...
Okay, that was the bell. That's the end.
Yeah, that's true.
Finish it off. It's been a chaotic ride. So much for sticking on top.
Very well. The alarm has started like 10 minutes ago, which means this episode is over. But that doesn't mean that you should stop. Please continue on the comment section down below. We do like your comments. We actually do reply to them, as I should do tonight. With that being said, as always, 10% of the profits will go to a effective altruism in New Zealand if ever we make any profit from it. With that being said, if YouTube is not your thing, you can follow us on, Threads and Instagram and other things, but also listen to this podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcast and the other podcast platforms that we post on, if we do, which I hope we do. With that being said, thanks for watching, and subscribe. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. See you next week.